And so that's a good segue here for this next item here. We need to add the controller code to show the form. So moving into my employee controller, I need to set up a new get mapping. So I'll set up this get mapping for a /show form for add. I'll create this method, show form for add, has one parameter, the model. Alrighty, so the first thing we need to do here is create the model attribute to bind the form data. So I'll simply create a new employee here, call it the employee. And then I'll add that as an attribute to the model. Give the attribute name of employee, and then I give a reference to the employee. And remember, the nice thing here is that our time leaf template will access this data for binding the form data. And then we simply return the actual template that we want to use for this form. And so remember, it's going to look in that templates folder for employees/employeeform.html. And that's the basic coding here for showing the form. Alrighty, step 2 is creating the HTML form for the new employee. And so we'll create this as a new file here in this employees subdirectory. And this file is called employeeform.html. And what I like to do is copy and paste the HTML header section just to give us this bootstrap support for our file. So I'll actually move to listemployees.html, and I'll kind of move up to the top of this file, and I'll copy all of their header section. So I'll kind of start at line 1 all the way down to line 13, and I'll just copy this information. And then I'll move back to my employee form.html, and then I'll just paste that information in there. And I'll just kind of stub out the body, and then I'll do an end HTML tag at the bottom. I'll make a quick update here to the title to save employee. And so we're in pretty good shape. We have all the bootstrap support, all the CSS stuff in place now. So I'll wrap all of this body content into a bootstrap container. We'll just set up a heading here for this page. And now I want to create this form here, save employee, that has 3 fields, first name, last name, and email. So now I'll just kind of stub out my form. And now I need to go through here and add some of the form attributes. Alrighty, so I have the basic form attributes in place here. So this is the real work, the th action, where we're going to send the form data to /employees/save. And then the th:: object as a reference to our model attribute, and that's the same model attribute that was set up in our employee controller. All right, that's done. Let's go ahead and define our input fields. Okay, so here's my first input field here for first name. And remember, the star curly braces selects the property on the referenced object. So first name's a property of employee. Okay, so that's in place. Now it's just more of the same, just a copy paste. So I'll copy this section and then just paste it X number of times for last name and email. And now I'll simply go through here and make the updates here. So for last name, this should be last name, and then also update the placeholder. And a similar thing for email. All right, so that looks pretty good. So those are my input fields for first name, last name, and email. Now the last thing I need to do here is set up my submit button. And the actual label I have for the submit button, I'll call it save. All right, so there we go. So that's basically all of the real coding here for this form. All right, so remember the first thing that happens when the form is loaded is that they'll call the getter methods. So they'll call employee get first name, get last name, and so on. And that's the data that you'll initially see in the form. And then when we actually go through and submit the data, then it's going to call the setter methods. So it's going to take all that form data and call the appropriate setter methods for set first name, set last name, set email, and so on.